नमस्कार, आप सुन रहे हैं सुनो शारदा 90.8 FM मेरे यानी आकृति के साथ। हमारे शो का नाम है एक मुलाकात और आज हम मुलाकात कर रहे हैं सुभारती गुहा से, जो कि एक आर्किटेक्ट हैं, काफी फेमस आर्किटेक्ट हैं। इनफैक्ट आई जस्ट फाउंड आउट कि ज़ाहा हदीद द ओनली फीमेल आर्किटेक्ट टू डेट जिन्होंने प्रिट्जर प्राइज जीता था, उनके साथ इन्होंने काम किया है 2010 से 2016 तक। आज इनका इंटरेक्शन सेशन हुआ शारदा के स्टूडेंट्स के साथ। तो सर, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल वेलकम टू आवर शो.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And it's a pleasure to have you here. Sir, tell us a little bit about your interaction session today. What was it about?
First, we gave a lecture. So I gave a lecture about जो मैंने काम किया है abroad में, about over 15 countries, and I showed some of the work. I also opened the floor for questions and answers. So the students के जो सवाल थे, I tried to answer the best I can about the work and how ideas can be translated. तो ये सब मिला के आज हमारा lecture था.
So you worked with Zaha Hadid.
Yes.
And I believe कि for architecture students that's going to be a pretty big deal, right? Did you feel questions about working with her? And if you can tell us a little bit about what the experience was like.
Previously, not just Zaha, but I also worked for Charles Correa. He was also quite famous architect in India. So there were some questions about where the office is heading because she passed away in 2016. So कहाँ पे जाना है office? Office का direction क्या है? How does it work now that she's not there, and who runs it?
Right.
And how do you design projects after a leadership change? तो ये काफ़ी, they are very important questions, and I think over the years, there are certain ways and methodologies you can develop, and you can keep running an institution or a firm over the years, provided the framework is set up right.
And so I believe that you have your own practice as well that you started in 2006.
Yes, after graduation I started my practice, and it's a very innovative practice. We don't take a lot of work, we do bits and pieces, but whatever we do, they are always published and shown.
Your work, it's not just utilitarian, it involves a bit of artistry.
Yes, because I think architecture in itself is about society, and it's a reflection of the society, and at some point the manifestation is individualistic in the form of art and sensibility, and that is reflected in the design, and then that is then built, and then 100, 200, 300 years, if what you have done is nice, then people look back at it, and then that becomes the culture of the place.
सर, कई सारे ऐसे प्रोफेशंस है सोसाइटी में जिनको काफ़ी सीरियसली लिया जाता है, डॉक्टर्स, इंजीनियर्स, ऑल्सो आर्किटेक्ट्स. व्हेन इन दैट काइंड ऑफ प्रोफेशन देयर इज अ स्कोप फॉर आर्ट, it takes a lot of confidence to go that way, to not just do what you need to do, but to have a little bit of individuality, as you said. So I was just wondering ki that confidence in your work, how much of that has come from your education and how much of that has come from working with prolific people?
I think the first thing that starts is passion. So if you have the passion for the work, it'll take you to the people who are prolific. So it's the intention. It's the design, it's your passion, and then once you have the passion, you somehow fall into the right places with the right people. I mean, we can look back at my CV and say they are important people, but when I first started it, there was nothing on the CV. It was just the passion.
Tell us a little bit about your background, because as students, it matters to us what your journey has been, how you've gotten to where you are, because at this point, हमारे लिए you are someone worth listening to.
Well, brief history is I went to a boarding school. तो मैं अजमेर में था, पढ़ रहा था, and I wanted to do architecture from the age of 13. And because
that's pretty early.
That's very early, yes. And it's nice because a lot of people I've met recently who have found what they wanted to do very early in their life. And I think that's a very key trigger because, society has its own constraints.
Right.
And once you reach that level at an older age, you are bound with more set of constraints like, finances and, children and family. So choosing a career at that point becomes very late. So I think it's very lucky that I found it very early. And then I knew where to go. I knew SPA was an institution in Delhi, and I applied. I got through, and then I started working there, and I got a chance to go to Bombay and work with Charles Correa. So I went there and got educated along the way. I think I never stopped learning. So I learned something from Charles, and I was scrapping through some of the work of what's going on around the world. Internet was coming along at the time. तो सब कुछ available हो रहा था, तो I could see a lot of the work done internationally, and I saw some of the work and I liked it, and I said I want to learn what's going on there. So that took me to the AA, which is the Architectural Association, जहाँ पे ऐसा काम हो रहा था And then the AA kind of taught me the new tools and techniques of design at the time. And uske baad se wahi AA se I got an opportunity to work at Zaha through Patrick. And then I worked with Zaha for a little bit, and then the office is a big office now. It was smaller then. And we have done a lot of international work, and even my own company that I started. My first project was in 2008. I had already got a project before I moved abroad, so I kept working on it. It's still in construction after so many years. So, but there are many other projects meanwhile that have been completed. But I don't think anything has changed from age 13 in terms of the idea.
We hope to have that kind of confidence in what we want to do. I heard the term parametrics when I was just going through the information that I had about your session. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because as media students that would want to document architecture, but we don't necessarily understand it all that much. What can you tell us about it in layman's terms?
Parametrics is basically a mathematical term. It means high-end. In a way, it's high-end computation that can drive even forms, and that some of it you can see in architecture today. So it also comes from a lot of inspiration from nature, because nature is not static; it's constantly changing, and every leaf is different, although it follows the same parameters of its being. For, let's say, the way the water flows through the leaf, through the veins, and comes right to the tip of the leaf. The parameters are the same, but every tree is different. Similarly, in architecture, you can run certain with the computation. You can run certain design parameters that can sometimes be helpful to design something, or sometimes can also be helpful to optimize the design, to rationalize it, to make it more cost efficient as well. So parametrics is a broad term. It's a mathematical term, but somehow it has come into architecture very recently because of the innovation of computation and digital technology.
Thank you for that explanation. So we've learned a little bit about you today, but you've also learned a little bit about this university. You got to interact with the students. So I want to know, what was your experience and what are you taking away from this interaction?
Well, I think it's a fantastic university. It's a very big campus, and I hope that the students here, are very passionate about what they're doing, and this university I'm sure is working very hard to bring a lot of students together and make those passions clash. So when they clash, they actually don't destroy each other, but bring out the better of each other.
What advice would you give to budding architects that are looking to make a mark in the industry?
I think they need to find what they really think about architecture themselves, rather than being followed by definitions. And if they can find the architecture that they want to pursue, that would be a great achievement for university and for them personally. It's about finding your idea and things that you like creating. And then eventually when you go to the industry, you will be facing day-to-day challenges of how to make it work. So don't get too bogged down about finding a job. Pursue what you want to do. And eventually when you'll go out, people will look for people with innovative ideas, even as a job or anything else. So keep that innovation in mind. When you do it in practice, you won't get to do immediately what you want to do. Then don't be disheartened by it. Keep pursuing. And after a period of learning from the practical side, you would eventually at some point get a chance to do it yourself. And when you do it yourself, then don't forget the things you've learned from this university or the passions you've had and the experience either, and put it together and then bring out your work.
So on a more light-hearted note, a lot of people जब वो architecture के बारे में सोचते हैं, वो वास्तुशास्त्र के बारे में भी सोचते हैं. So in your work, do you ever have to consider vastushastra or any sort of, say, superstition?
Yes. I don't think there is a point in fighting a client. I always think you can work with it. And design is such a thing. The challenges bring out the better in design. So if there's a particular client who's interested in Vastu and wants a particular thing in a particular way, I think design has a lot of scope to address it and give him what he really wants. Vastu Shastra, I have studied it, but I don't practice it as Vastu Shastra. I know why what was done at the time, jab ye likha gaya tha, and when it was made. And it is like any scripture, some of the things have to be changed over a period of time. I think it shouldn't be rejected or embraced completely. It should be just gone along with the project-to-project basis and integrated in some parts if necessary.
I want to know if you had any favorite or any questions that you did not like in the interaction session.
No,
that you thought were redundant maybe?
No, not at all. I think
No silly questions then.
No, I think the silly questions make you think a lot more because you got to answer it well.
That's a relief.
You got to answer it better because then you got to dig deeper into the understanding of the profession और उसमें क्या चाहिए है कि ऐसे सवाल क्यों उठते हैं. That's a big question as well. So I think there are no silly questions, but there are silly answers.
So, इंडिया में जब भी हम किसी प्रोफेशन के बारे में सोचते हैं तो हम स्कोप के बारे में सोचते हैं, नॉट जस्ट हाउ वी वुड फेयर इन दैट प्रोफेशन बट ऑल्सो वेदर दैट प्रोफेशन on average has something to offer to students. तो जैसे इंजीनियरिंग के लिए a lot of people assume that they're going to do well. मीडिया के लिए for us a lot of people assume कि हमारा दिवाला निकला रहेगा जिंदगी भर. तो आर्किटेक्चर के लिए do you think that right now there's a lot of scope or is it at the moment a challenging terrain?
I think it's a very challenging terrain because the construction industry is booming in the whole world like never before, but architects hardly get paid, and architecturally there's a lot of competition, and I think it's pros and cons, but at the same time you got to understand that we are struggling to see more and more innovative designs, and when you compare today's architecture with 500 years ago when the Romans were working at it, we are quite shy in competing against them. So we are not really creating buildings that people would one day want to come and visit. And I think it's a challenging time, even though we are building the highest number of buildings these days. So I think that has to be brought in perspective, and designers and clients and all should look towards making things that are more, they stand for longer than just 15-20 years for a re-evaluation. So I think it's a big challenge. Students and politicians and everybody who's going to come in, जो आएंगे, उनके लिए ये सवाल बहुत बड़ा है. And everyone has to contribute. It cannot be just architects because it's a profession so linked with all other domains, including economy and finance and real estate is big. So everyone has to contribute. And that idea is to go together.
So now that we know about the challenges, we'd like to wrap up with knowing what you love about architecture so that people are left when they listen to this program with the thought कि नहीं हमें भी करना है ये.
Well, that I will try and wrap up why I did it, and then people can decide if they want to do it or not. I mean, I liked to paint when I was very young, and painting was the thing I wanted to do. And when I was about 13, I just felt that painting, unlike the Renaissance, was very restricted now in a canvas or in a certain particular room, and it was isolated. And I thought to contribute towards society in a greater and larger scale, architecture was one of the ways to do it. And if you could paint the world as a canvas, that was one of my ideas.
You're an architect and apparently also a poet. Thank you so much, sir. Would you like to say anything else to us?
Thank you very much for having me. That's it. And just keep going. I think it's a great thing to have a radio going and people listening.
Thank you so much. आप सुन रहे हैं सुनो शारदा 90.8 FM और आप सुनते ही रहिए. हमारे शो का नाम था एक मुलाकात. मैं हूँ आकृति. अलविदा लेती हूँ आपसे. Goodbye.